This episode is about getting older. I talk with a former colleague and very dear friend from the media business, Cheryl Sternberg, who has since retired and sees her career from a very different vantage point. She's a boomer looking at her career and life experience from that standpoint, and I'm a Gen Xer entering into the quote unquote middle age. And we talk about boundaries and FOMO and holding true to who you are at work and what it means to accept yourself, both for who you are, but more importantly, who you're not. And she dropped what I think was an amazing metaphor for what it means to get older, and that is leaving at intermission. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to When Does It Get Good? I'm Zovig Garboushian, and today I'm here with my longtime friend and former colleague for many years, Cheryl Sternberg. Cheryl has been a leader in consumer and brand research for big names like Seagram's and Bon Appetit and Parenting, and she's now retired. And from what I can tell, living her best life. She has been a wise and kind, loving friend to me and sounding board for over 2 decades. And what I love about Cheryl is that she takes everything with a sense of lightness. And I thought, who better to talk to about the idea of getting older than Cheryl? So that's what we are talking about today, Cheryl. We're talking about getting older. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because, I'm 46. I just turned 46 and I am clearly in a new stage of my life, both as a woman, as a partner, as a friend, and in my career. And I'm noticing how different things feel. So Cheryl, welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
I'm going to dive right into kind of where I want us to focus, and then we'll kind of unpack it. But what I'm noticing about getting older, and you can call it aging, you could call it getting older, whatever, is the level of personal freedom that I have been feeling. And when I say personal freedom, I mean things like feeling comfortable saying no and saying yes and being very conscious about those choices, understanding myself and my motivations on a deeper level, caring less about things that I used to think were really significant and important, but now that I just sort of let go, how my relationships have evolved and that I feel very comfortable having relationships the way I need to. And then with my career, I'm a business owner and I feel a great sense of personal freedom and ownership in how I navigate my business. And it wasn't always that way. As you know, you and I worked together in the corporate world. And so it didn't always feel that we had our full say in what we did.
Right.
So I'd love to just start there with that idea of personal freedom. When you think about where you are, now you're a boomer and I'm Gen X. So just for everybody to sort of level set where we are in our lives.
Yep.
When I say personal freedom, how does that show up for you now versus when you were working full time and your daughter was younger? What does that look like for you?
What it looks like now is having more time and emotional energy, and I guess in some ways, permission from the universe to spend more time working on myself. And in terms of the me that makes me happy, the me that I can look at and say, wow, I just did that thing that I never would have even tried to do years ago. Sometimes it has to do with not needing permission from anyone. At other times, it has to do with seeking consultation from people you trust. Because it's almost like when you're younger, it's almost binary. Either your whole gang of people is in on what you're doing and you canvass them all, or you don't tell anybody and you sit there with your decision or your challenge by yourself. And I think as you go along, you can assemble the people that you really trust to turn to about various challenges you may be facing. And I think that becomes clearer as you age. It's almost like there's this unofficial council of people behind you that watch what you're doing, and it gets to a point where they will be honest with you. So we all make mistakes along the way, some big, some small. And when you can face those and learn from them, obviously it serves you the best. And it's your friends and your confidence and the people you trust that will help you see those things without it feeling like you're being attacked, like in high school. So I think the openness to making mistakes, the openness to trying things that may or may not work out, I think that's, in a sense, the kind of risk taking that you can do as you age, and which is really contrary to how most people usually think about it. Oh, it's kids who take risks. And if it's try a new brand, oh, no, if you're over 60, you will never change your moisturizer. I mean, that's ridiculous, obviously. And what happens is actually you get to a point where you say, well, what am I waiting for? Of course, I'm going to try that new thing. Why not? Because it's sort of like it's less onerous. So you try a new path, it doesn't work. You get more comfortable saying, yeah, I tried that. It was a disaster. Yeah, and then, the issue with that is sometimes that you change, and then it affects other things, and it affects your friendships. And we've talked about this so much.
Yeah.
Not everybody is a lifer. And this is the point in time where you kind of see who is still there for you in a way that's positive, and who it's been a great ride, but it's just not working anymore. We're in very different places, almost like with romantic relationships, very similar.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about relationships, because that is one of the most prominent ways I'm noticing myself changing. You talked about this core group of people. You talked about, people telling you the truth and letting certain people go. And I've experienced all of those. I have a smaller and smaller group of people as I get older. I've never been the party planner with a gaggle of friends. That's never been who I'm much better in the one-on-one experience. Usually they're people from very different parts of my life. I rarely bring them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's always been comfortable for me, but I have gotten much, much more. That doesn't make any sense. I have gotten much better at noticing when it is time for a friendship to end.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have been very natural, just sort of the ship just sort of leaves the shore and it's gone. Some were a little more friction. They had a little more friction that I had to be very obvious about.
Right.
And some just straight up, they needed to end, and it had to be a straight up conversation, very direct. And this has to be over.
Right.
And each one of them was different, but each one of them had its time and its place. And like you said, you're not a lifer. We're not lifers for each other. It's not about you're no longer good for me, but also I don't feel like I'm adding value to you anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a friend that it ended with a little bit of friction a couple of years ago, and it ended around my wedding time, which, as you know, when you have milestones in your life, you have a child, you get married, you move to a new city, friendships, and they change, they fall away. Weird things happen in those big life moments. And a weird thing happened with this particular friend. We had always been sort of tenuous. And around the time of my wedding, I realized it's just time for this friendship to end. And she sort of came at me very aggressively with happy birthday wishes. And I really didn't understand why. And I said, why are you trying so hard to get a hold of me on my birthday? I don't understand. And she said, that's what friends do. And I said, we haven't been friends for some time.
Exactly.
Let's call this out. We have not really been close friends for some time. And she was really offended by that, and then lashed out. And I just remained silent and thought, let this go away.
That's right. That's right.
So being able, I think that comes from, and you tell me if you agree, being able to let relationships go means that I am more comfortable with being by myself.
Yes. Oh my God. Remember years ago, when you were single and in your wonderful apartment, and weekends would come, and it would be, you'd be running just thing to thing to thing to thing. And I would say, so take it easy. You just got a new couch. Flake out on your couch. Watch some movies. You were driven to keep doing stuff. And I think there's a huge spectrum of people, obviously, with that. And with you, it was fairly intense.
As most things are.
Yeah, well, there's a fair point. It makes for a hell of a show, though. Why do you think I hang
I'm sure.
around? Yeah.
I provided years of entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. But in doing that, that fear of, well, if I'm sitting here alone, then I'm not meeting anybody. I'm not having any new experiences. And, these wonderful things that are waiting for me in my life won't find me. And all of that angst is, I think it's part of being human. And the sooner we start looking at ourselves and understanding our choices, the sooner we can get past that. But I think the combination of what your life experience is and how you choose to handle these questions determines how soon you get there. So, for me, it was absolutely, God, I've lost track, probably 5 or 6 really great therapists over different points in my life that really helped understand my crazies. What were these things that always had me so unhappy? So very much worried about, as you said before, what does everybody think of me? Am I doing the things that make people like me? Am I going to be successful? All of that stuff. And you get to a point where you can look around and say, well, you know what? I've got some good friends. I've got a decent job. And that almost can be a sort of a lull. I mean, frankly, I find the beginnings and the onsets of new stages to be much more interesting than when you're in the thick of anything. Change, it can be perceived as negative, but I mean, frankly, especially if you look at my life with a number of relationships and living in different places as you have, moving to a new place, a new pet, a new job, those things are often invigorating, and they kind of give you that little like step on the gas to move you through. As you age, those kind of get fewer, farther between, and then you say, well, is this the last one? Is this my last job that I just accepted? How long will I be in it? What will happen? And what would I do if I didn't have work? So it starts to weigh heavy. And I can tell you that the best thing for people to do who are concerned with this is to look around. And if you're lucky and smart, you have friends at different ages. So you can look to them and either just by watching or hopefully by communicating, understand their perception of their point in time. And you can watch that and learn from it, which is really a wonderful thing. It also affects where you're at. So, as my husband Tom and I talk about a lot, we do a lot of volunteer work with college kids. And we feel that we get so much back from them that, we feel it's like they're volunteering to help us because we just get terrific feelings from being with younger people about the future.
You talked about, you gave the example of me sort of running from thing to thing and all of the doing and the action taking. And, it definitely was my fear that if I wasn't taking action or being active in my life, that the things that I wanted to have would not happen. They would not show up, whether that be finding love, the career, the ambition, the fitness. And, if I'm not working out 5 and 6 days a week, then what will become of my physical body? And all of these things that they were running from a place of fear, and the doing of it became very central. I was always doing. And I find that this is common, that we will define ourselves by what we do and what people can see. And, how we look to others and them validating who we are. This shows up at work for sure, in our careers. This shows up in our personal lives. You still live in New York City, but when I lived in New York, it showed up in things like, well, what neighborhood do you live in? And what size is your square footage is your apartment? And do you have a doorman? And all of the things that were important in that bubble of New York City. Yep. And so I want to just chat for a second about the doing and the point at which maybe you started to understand that it wasn't so much about what you did, but it was about how you showed up and who you were.
Yes. Oh my goodness. My experience with that in some regards, I think restricted my success.
How so?
As defined by the outside world, but it was necessary for my success as defined by me. Namely, because my career was in a kind of a technical specialty, most people couldn't just jump into my job and do it because there was a certain background one had to have in the nitty gritty of research, statistics, some real hard knowledge there necessary. I did that intentionally because I like being an expert. I like to be the expert in the room. And that to me was very, very gratifying. Very, very good ego boost, all of that. And I recognized it a little while into my process. It didn't take me long to say, wait a minute, kiddo, you're getting off on this. What part is it? Well, yeah, because I'm the only one who knows how to do this yet. And that felt very good. But when you feel that way, and then someone comes along and says, yeah, I know that's the right way to do it, but I want you to do it this other way. And it's not because that other way might be, more interesting or newer. It's that other way is going to give them what they want. And in some way, cast a bit of doubt on the expertise of my solution. And that's where I would run into problems. And basically, a supervisor could say, get rid of her, get another research person who's going to make us, give us the answers we want, who's going to make the data say what we want it to. And I certainly was, my favorite way of looking at that kind of battle was, I would say, I have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. Whom would you like to speak with about this survey? And I was fully capable of saying, you want me to find a way to get those women to say that's the best sponge they ever used? I will find that way. But if you want to really know how they feel about your product, tell me now. And that's what we'll do. So I was capable of going both ways, but when it was something important and people couldn't see why it mattered to really do this with rigor and seriously, that's when I would feel like, just the lone wolf and feel very separate from others that I worked with. And that definitely, I know that there were people who would look at what I knew and how I was trying to share it as being, well, she's just always trying to teach us stuff and we don't have time for that. We don't want to learn it. We just want her to do it so that we can go out and sell another page of business. So I think emotionally, that was a challenge for me over the years, definitely. So that was the trade-off.
You made that trade-off, and it sounds like you made those choices consciously, and I made the trade-off and did not always make those choices consciously. I felt forced a lot of times. And what would happen for me in those moments was that I would rebel, and it would look like I wasn't a team player. And it would be, you called yourself a lone wolf. And sometimes I felt that way because I would have ideas. I was a marketer, and I would have ideas thrown at me, and salespeople would want to do these wacky things that would cost all this money and all this effort, and I would have to tell them no. And in fact, once I even said, when they said, "Why won't you do this?" and I said, "Because it's a stupid idea." I just had to put my foot down. And I think what we're talking about here, though, is when we are up against things that are not congruent with who we are. Those moments when either our values are being pushed up against, or our core beliefs about what is right and what is wrong, or what is fair and what is not, or what is just or what is not, or what is appropriate or what is not. We all I can't speak for any of that. I don't know that any of that is real anyway, but there were definitely moments where I thought, this just isn't right. This is not right.
Exactly.
And I would push back in those times, and I would get not punished, but there would be repercussions for those.
Always.
And now that I'm have my own business, a lot of that is gone. Although I do experience moments from my clients who are experiencing getting pushed up against in their values and their beliefs in their business,
Yes.
they then unknowingly sort of put that forward for me and the work that we do together. And I have to remember, oh, no, their values at that company are not mine.
Right.
And they are also not the values of my client. And so I have to work to say, is this you speaking or is this your company speaking? So we should always be thinking about, is this mine or is this theirs? Is this old or did I come up with it myself? And I think that that's some of the hardest work that we'll do, is to separate ourselves from what we're being told is the thing to do, is the party line, as it were. Here's what we're all doing. Here's how we do it here. I got that a lot.
Yeah.
And there is a way for us to play the game, right? Because if you're like you did, you chose, okay, do you want the devil or do you want the angel? Which one do you want? I can give you either. So you made it clear, like, I see what you're doing and I'll do it, but I see what you're doing. And I love that, because we can play the game of the design of the place that we're in, but we don't have to be that game.
Exactly. And also, I think to me, it also was my way of saying, I've got a lot I can share with you to help you make your job easier, better, help you look better, give you some facts to back up what you're spewing. I can do that. But you got to understand that it's not, a just drop your request in the box and something gets spit out the other side. And that the respect for what I do, if I see that coming from you, you're going to get the best out of me. So part of this is I'm just telling you right up front. You can get standard service from me or you can get the best. And that's going to depend on what I think you deserve based on how you are coming at me with your needs. When you recognize that, it's just so much easier to stay focused on yourself and what do you want, and stop worrying about how that person over there might distract you and send you off of your road. It's how focused can you stay, starting how young. And focus does not mean closing your ears to anything else, but focus really just does mean what makes me feel good and where do I feel a development in myself.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about boundaries and setting boundaries and how we set boundaries for ourselves in relationships, maybe in our work, but just sort of in our lives. And, there are different kinds of boundaries that we can hold. There are time boundaries, and there are physical boundaries, and there are emotional boundaries. There are spiritual boundaries. There are financial boundaries, how we spend our money. And I find that our boundaries are only as good as how we hold them. Right. And so I work with a lot of people on their boundaries. They work in high pressure situations. They have very intense family lives and families that pressure them in different ways, or friends that are really intense. Their boundaries get pushed up against a lot. And I have found I've never actually had too much trouble saying no. If I don't want to do something, I'm pretty clear about it. But certainly there have been moments in my life where I felt pressure to conform and to say yes to things that I was not super excited about, or didn't feel right doing, or was resentful that I had to spend my time doing. And so I'm wondering now, I'll just say for myself now, I've become even more resolute in how I set my boundaries. And it's not always a hard no, but it's often, okay, I can do this, but not right now, or I can do this, but I need to do this in my way. Or can we find an agreement on how this needs to be done? And I give myself the chance to take time and think about things to make a conscious choice, as opposed to just saying yes or no as a trigger, but sort of being triggered and saying it as a reaction. And then the key is not feeling guilty once you've set the boundary. Because that is one of the hardest things to do, is you say no and then you sort of ruminate on it.
With me, it's less about feeling guilty as it is about FOMO.
Oh,
You
please
see,
say more
by
about
saying no, it means, well, you're gonna miss out. You're not gonna be there for this thing. Could wind up being the biggest thing of all time, the best party of all time, the best subgroup committee to fix the problem in the company, and everybody's getting a plaque, and you don't get a plaque because you were not part of the group, because you said, oh, I got too much on my plate. I don't want another committee to sit on. So yeah, fear of missing out is, it corporately or work-wise, it's less about, well, my friends are going to have a good time, and obviously it's more about being noticed by senior management, being part of something that becomes a big success, and people use it as a step ladder, and that is a tough one. That's a really tough one. Again, the whole problem with not being viewed as a team player. Exactly. And, one can say, if that's how you're being viewed, well, maybe you're playing for the wrong team, or even in the wrong league. Change your sport. I mean, everybody, I think, can find a place that feels comfortable. When you find enough like-minded people there, and it's hard to find them. You don't know at first who they are in the work environment, who has the same kind of expectations of themselves as you do. And it takes time.
The FOMO piece, which I think a lot of listeners and I certainly can relate to. I'm a big, this is a great opportunity. This is I would love to learn from this. I want to have fun with this. I'm wondering, does FOMO still show up for you in what you say yes and what you say no to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm 14 again.
So then how do you then evaluate for yourself where you need to draw clear lines, what you want to say yes to, and what you can say, what you feel good saying no to? Where do you draw those lines?
The process is, sometimes it happens in a split second, and sometimes it can be days of rumination about whether to do the thing or not. And some things are just clear and easy. Bunch of people is going out to see a movie. You want to come along? I look outside. It's pissing rain. No, I'm cozy inside. Thank you. Easy peasy. Group of people going out to celebrate somebody's birthday on a day where maybe I have something else planned that I kind of wanted to do. Do I change that plan in order to go out with this group of people? Well, I think I really would like to do my original plan, but this group of people, I don't know very well, but I like them. I'd like to be included in their group. And if I say no now, maybe I won't be asked the next time. I don't think it ever goes away. I think it's human. It's just human. And sometimes it's just as simple as choices, but they are layered. And then it gets exhausting. It gets absolutely exhausting. So some things start to come more easily as you age. Absolutely, certain things become very clear. Just last week, we sat through the first act of a Broadway play that has been highly praised. And at intermission, looked at each other and said, meh, and we left. We left at intermission. Now, plenty of people would say, shame on you. Often it gets better in the second part, this, that. It was our buck, it was our butts. And we just said, you know what? No, we're not going to stay through this. And that's part of it. Life's too short. We're not spending time doing things we don't want to do.
It's a great metaphor, leaving at intermission. Like for life, and just deciding that, okay, this is no longer right for me. I'm now leaving. This is my intermission.
Right. I'm going to go. That's right. It's an opportunity to change to another. I mean, it isn't like leaving this world. You're not, saying that's it. I'm done with my life because I'm not happy with this particular play. But you're saying, yes, there's someplace I'd rather be. Yeah. And I can get there easily and with a clear conscience.
Yes. And I will feel better and more congruent and more of myself if I go now. And, that's something actually a very tactical thing that I have learned is when to call things, when to say, this is it, this is complete. I thought this was going to be, this is not what I thought it was going to be. It's not matching my intention or motivation for being here. And so I am going to be departing. Thank you. And I'm complete.
There it is. Exactly. Exactly. Just simple words like that. Again, I still go back to one of the best things, a therapist ever gave me. There's like a handful of particularly amazing things that she gave me. And one of them was the simple phrase, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me.
That doesn't work for me.
We're all so uncomfortable with no.
Yeah.
No, I can. No, I know. I'm sorry.
That doesn't work for me. And this is everybody's reminder that therapy is the most valuable thing you could do for yourself. So if you have not seen a therapist or you are in between therapists, please go back to therapy immediately. We all need it. It's not just for difficult moments or trauma or getting through hard times. It is an exceptional maintenance tool when you find a good therapist. That was my PSA.
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Absolutely agreed.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this idea that is showing up a lot for me, and it is showing up a lot for the people that I work with. It's this idea of it's not just about when you get older, but I think as you progress in your life, you start to understand, hopefully you're doing some level of reflective something in your life so that you can understand more about who you are and accept that which you are not. I think it is just as important for us to understand who we are as it is who we are not. Because, and especially women, I think, get this story thrown at them that we have to be everything to everyone. We can have it all. We can be the parent and we can have the career and we can be the spouse and we can do all the things. And I don't think that's possible, nor do I want that, because it's flippin' exhausting. It's a constant balancing act. It's a constant making of choices all the time. I will give 100% here and 20% here today and then flip it tomorrow. It's a evolving thing. But I know for me, I tried to, for a very long time in my 20s and 30s, to be everything. I was going to be the best at my job. I was going to be the woman that matched the man that I was going out with, I was dating, and Lord knows that was a whole career in and of itself for me. I was going to be the best yoga teacher. I was going to be the best this, the best that. I was going to be all of the things. And many of those things didn't actually match who I was. And one of the things particularly that showed up for me was I had a lot of shame around my level of intensity in my personality. My level of feeling, that I was never laid back. I was too intense. I remember I broke down into tears in a coffee shop once because a guy called me pushy. And I was so ashamed about being pushy. And a friend of mine looked at me, and it was the husband of a good friend, and he happened to be there too. And he's like, "What's up?" And I told him, and he said, "So you're pushy." Okay. And he just shrugged and he started laughing. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm pushy. When I believe in something, you bet your ass I'm going to be pushy. But that took a long time for me, Cheryl, to understand that I didn't need to have shame around it. I certainly needed to be aware of it, but I was never going to be the laid back, go with the flow kind of person that didn't have something to say about everything. Exactly. And that was continuing for me to learn that, because for me it was, what if they don't like me? What if they don't like it? And so it was about being liked and being accepted. And now it's kind of like, look, the reason I do this job so well is because I am intense, because I see things deeply. The reason that I succeed and I move so fast is because I am focused. And so there is a light side and a shadow side to all those things. But I want you to talk a little bit about the understanding of who we are, and also the acceptance of who we are not.
Yeah. My life has provided me a clear example of what happens to a woman who goes through life appeasing everyone else, always being liked by everybody, never having fights, with friends, just really everybody, just like I said, appeasing. That's pretty much what my mom did her whole life. Now, as soon as she hit roughly age of 80, which was about 15 years ago, she stopped. She has been on strike since then, doing nothing for anybody, showing very little interest in grandchildren and children. And she is so content, I cannot tell you. So I look at that and I say, well, that kind of sucks. That's certainly not, to me, something a pattern to want to follow. So, how to express being the outlier, how to be yourself without going along with everybody else, but without becoming a pariah. And again, it's just a matter of, like you said, it's boundaries, upper end and lower end boundaries. So I think when we spend too much time being someone else, as soon as there's something in the environment that gives us an opportunity to actually speak our truth, the force of it sometimes coming out is almost explosive. And everybody turns around and looks and says, woo, what's her problem? And whereas obviously, as we know intellectually, that if you speak your truth at an appropriate level, whatever, understanding, looking at the time and place, it becomes who you are. And people accept that from you if they choose to be with you. And that's part of the thing in relationships. I mean, work relationships, of course, are particularly tough because it is very hard to be who you truly are at work because so much else is layered into it versus who you are in your personal life. But you can't be two totally different people. Obviously, that's got to be emotionally very stressful. So what you show is something that I think is a practice that begins as soon as you become aware of this. And some people, like you, become aware of this stuff very young. And for others, it really does take into your older age because you finally have the time to observe it or talk about it with less of a guard up. And I don't know, actually, these days, if you just think about what's going on in the country and the degree of discourse, which has gotten really very, very loaded and dangerous. I don't know, how people are handling that in business situations, because it's very hard to just say, no, we don't talk about that here. It comes out some way or another. And so that part of your truth, you can't always live all your truths. That's part of it.
You can't be every part of yourself all the time. It's a little reckless. We have to be discerning about how much we show and where. And I think not everybody deserves to see all parts of me. Not everybody deserves to see the totally vulnerable parts of me, or not everyone deserves to get the quick-witted, joking part of me that can rant at anything and make people laugh. Not everyone deserves to see all of me all the time. For me to know all of who I am at any given time, that I can pull out any part of me, that I know that this part of me will really help this situation. This part of me, if I do it now, will create harmony or will create support for who I'm working with. I need to be intuitive here. I need to be analytical here. I need to be intense here, or maybe I just need to dial it down. That's okay. And you said something that I wrote down, that it was something like the people who are with you, if they choose to be with you. And I think that's really, really important. If people choose to be with me, and they can choose to not, and that is okay. And it means nothing about who I am. That's the end piece of that sentence. It's okay if you don't like me. It's okay if I don't belong in this job, or if you are not my client. If this particular proposal got a no because I'm not the right coach or leadership development expert for them, that's fine. and it means nothing about who I am and what I do. It simply is not a fit.
I had someone say those very words to me once. And this was a salesperson who was on the staff that I was supporting. And we had just, it was not working. And my boss at the time said, just sit down with her. Just why don't you just try and talk it out? And so I go into this with my then years of therapy, and I know people, and I can do this. And I was going to work this out and come out. Look what a great manager person I am. I could do this. And I started off by saying, look, we really seem to have a hard time working together. And I don't get it. Help me here. What's the problem? She looked me dead in the eye and said, well, I just don't like you, Cheryl. And I feel, oh God, I still feel it. It was a physical pain and hurt. And I frankly don't remember what came next. I don't believe there was any we didn't start rolling on the floor trying to punch each other. I think it probably ended fairly quickly. And I probably said something to the extent of, well, we got to work together. But now that I know that, okay, well, sorry to hear that. I think I did say, well, what is it? And they went on to talk about, well, you're always trying to teach us stuff. Yeah, because most of you don't know this stuff and you need to know it. But there it was. I had, if you will, a power base. And this was somebody in sales to whom the only power base is, did you meet goal this month? Did you, right? And here I didn't get involved in any stuff like that. I just gave them information to make them better. But she hated me for having that over her. And so it was a warning. It was a warning to me of, okay, that's what's out there and I got to be aware. But it didn't change much of how I operated, except to just be a little more careful and be a little less naive.
Yes. It didn't change how you operated.
No.
It doesn't have to change how we operated, how we operate. But I think it does up the level of discernment and the choices that we make. Be a little more careful around her.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
Okay. If that's what needs to happen, that needs to happen. And again, it is not it wasn't diminishing to you. It doesn't have to be diminishing to us. It doesn't have to mean something about us other than it just doesn't work. It's not a diminishing thing. It means nothing other than what it is.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good place for us to kind of bring this to a close. So I want to say, thank you so much, Cheryl, for diving into these different parts of this sort of, I guess, nebulous world of what it means to get older and evolve as a person and add the years and add the decades. And I don't know about you, but I'm noticing for me, at certain commercials come on and me and my husband look at each other and go, we are not the audience.
We are not them.
This is not, we look at each other and go, what just happened? We must not be the audience.
Both ways. There's stuff that is so clearly we are too old for. We'll again look at each other and say, I don't know what that was. I don't even know where you put it. Is there an electrical cord? What does it do? And then the other things that are, supposed to be for us. And we're often like, we don't look like that. Are we them? Are they our age? Do you think that? Or when we're out somewhere, look at that couple over there. Are they older than us or younger than us? What do you think? Yeah, we spend a lot of time on that. But, the old story just holds true always. The thing that'll get you through the best is this combination of knowing and loving yourself and knowing and loving your partner. And if you are blessed with a partner, that you look at and you say, I can get through this with this person's help because we lift each other up, then that's great. And whether it's, a romantic partner, a family member, or even, some sort of boss, if you're still working at this age, which many people are. It's that connected thing. This is the old hippy dippy stuff coming out. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Peace.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, peace. Thank you so
Peace,
much,
love.
Cheryl. I love you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for doing this with us.
Love
and
you back,
to everybody who's listening, take good care of
Yes.
yourselves. Lots of love and big energy. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.